up, everybody? Welcome back. It's been a hot minute since I've been on the podcast here. This is Life Well Done. I'm Brian. I'm super jacked up for our guest today out of New York. I know it has been a while. I just mentioned that, but kind of taking some maintenance time on myself, trying to get things back together. And always funny how when you try to put everything back together, more things fall apart. So been an interesting little ride. Moved home from Colorado in beginning of July, and here we are mid-October. Actually celebrating my nephew's second birthday today, so that's pretty exciting stuff. But be on the lookout before we get into our guest today. Be on the lookout for a website coming, some virtual training about to be launched. And obviously you can find us at Life Well Done on Instagram. There's a Twitter coming out. Facebook page is being updated right now. So just be on the lookout for a bunch of new stuff coming out. I'm pretty jacked up about everything. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest here, Ryan Parr. He owns Bare Bones Strength. We were just talking about this offline. We have no clue how if I found him or he found me on social media, but we're both part of the Power Athlete community, which is a fantastic community of endless knowledge and friendships, really. This guy caught my eye. I don't know if he found me or I found him, but either way, his page caught my eye. Very unique training, very creative with his training. He's a monster in the gym. He talks about effective training for those without the time to spare. Absolutely awesome to watch your videos come out on Instagram. I know he's doing a ton, but the most fascinating thing is he's a nomad. He and his family are living out of an RV. They're from upstate New York. He's been in the industry for 6 years, but he's been working out, training, athlete for probably all his life. I know he's a martial artist in his young age. 32 years old, married with a daughter. It's 2.5, I think he said. And he's getting ready to hit the road with his family and take off there. So I am super jacked up. We're going to be talking a little bit about how to start your fitness journey. And I'm sure there will be plenty of rants in the middle of that. So without further ado, Bare Bones Strength, Ryan Parr, how are you, man?
Awesome, Ryan. Thanks for having me, man. This is super exciting.
This has been in the works for a few minutes here. We talked a little bit ago, and then I kind of fell apart. And what did I do? I reached out yesterday or Sunday, whatever it was. It was like, you do this? Let's do it Tuesday. So
super. I know how it goes. Yeah. Man, I should have you write my bio, by the way. That was phenomenal. Yeah. I was listening to it, like, man, who's that guy? You make me sound good. Thanks, dude.
I got a little nervous here. It's been a minute since I've been on here, so I missed a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm going to let you tell your story, first of all, because it's probably better that way.
So I have this thing about me where I want it to be as difficult as possible for people to describe me. I really do. Because I feel like I don't want to be pigeonholed into any one thing. So, and I talk about this a lot, like, I've spent a lot of my time in the CrossFit community, but also the Power Athlete community and like football training. I've strength trained athletes. I've also been a competitive power lifter, competitive strongman. I train bodybuilding. I do like weeks at a time of kettlebell and body weight only. And my goal has been for nobody to be able to pigeonhole me and say, oh, that dude's a CrossFitter or that dude's a strongman or whatever. Because
so awesome.
my whole idea when I started Bare Bones Strength was like, what's going to serve me the best? And sometimes it looks like all these other things. You know what I mean? So I think that I love jumping into CrossFit classes, but I also love deadlifting heavy, but I also love playing with Atlas stones and all of it. And I think at the end of the day, keeping my why in perspective is what my whole company, my whole vision has been built on. And my whole thing was, I want to be as big and strong and tough and capable as possible, right? And lately, so by lately, I mean in the last 2 years, it's been, because that's how old my daughter is, it's been, I want to be the fittest, coolest, most capable 40-year-old dad I can be. And I've got 4 years to hit that goal. So I'm taking a big picture view and just letting it all fall into place.
Well, it's so crazy. Like, there's so few people in the world doing anything where it's like, I can just stick to one thing forever. And that's definitely not the time. You think about careers. Like, that's just not. The cool thing about being in the fitness industry is if you make it a career, it's always changing. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like the same job every single day. Parts of it do. I mean, all right, just showing up is part of it. But it's always changing. There's new information, new movements, more creativity, people with different goals coming up. So you're like, I'm on my toes again. But I have so many questions for you about your training. But before we dive into that, I want you to explain the nomad and the RV portion of this. Because when we started talking, I was still living near Denver, and you were talking about potentially moving out to Colorado Springs. So update me and us about what's going on with that.
Totally, man. Totally. So when I met my wife, and so it's been 4 or 5 years since we've started these conversations about when we first met. She was a photographer, and I was just getting into heavier into the whole fitness world and making that a career. I was going back to school at the time, and we had talked about back then these big dreams and aspirations of living out of a van. And this was we had a dog, and that was it. No kid, anything. And then fast forward, life happens. You know, you settle in. We bought a house, and we had a career and everything set. And her business is booming locally. And then we kind of revisited the idea of like, are we going to be happy here? Like, not that there's anything wrong with the area, because we love the area and we're thriving. Don't get me wrong. Business is awesome and people are great and the relationships we build here are awesome. But like, are we going to be 45, 50, 60 years old and be like, man, why didn't we try that? So we started to look at where would we move? Where would we go? And we took our honeymoon to Seattle, and we just backpacked around the Olympic Peninsula and kind of looked at it through that lens because we love the whole Pacific Northwest and that whole feel. And then we visited some friends in Colorado about a year and a half ago. And we were like, what about Colorado? Like it's beautiful. We got mountains, we got people. The industry is big for both of us, for her elopement photography, for fitness. So it kind of turned into, let's move to Colorado. And then that put the plans in motion. So it became, my business plan started. I was going to open a gym. We started looking at like renting or buying. We were getting our house ready to sell here. And then it kind of came to the point where it was so intense. And it actually, so what we found is that when people try to go out on their own and they try to like do something outside of what's normal, they always fall back into the same patterns, right? Because of what's comfortable. And I think that we were trying very, very difficult to break outside of comfort patterns. And what had happened was we were really looking at selling our house here and then going to Colorado and having a new mortgage and a new plan and a new day. And all of a sudden our stresses of the day were going to be identical. Right. And it was like, is this really what we want? And that was compounded when we realized that it was going to take longer than expected for the sale of our house to happen. So the money that we were going to use to start my gym would have taken longer. So she was like, you know what? We had this old 1976 20-foot Jayco, like this old travel trailer camper. We were like, what if we just live out of that for a little while so we don't have to pay rent until the gym is open? And then it was like, well, we're not going to live out of that in Colorado because it's cold that time of year. What if we travel south? And that turned into, we should get a bigger camper. So we sold that. We bought a 28-foot fifth wheel, which means that we had to buy a new truck. So now I drive a bus pretty much. It's an F-250 diesel. And lo and behold, now we're like, dude, this is nice. Like, we're very minimalist. We don't own very many things. And we can fit our entire life into a 28-foot fifth wheel. It's got one slide out. It's got a room for my wife and I in the front. It's got a bunk space in the back for my daughter. Oh. And it's like, man, we got the polar package on it. So it's insulated. We're like, can we do this? Can we just live out of this? And so we started exploring where what our overhead would be, right? We don't have a mortgage anymore. What do we really need financially to stay above? I don't know, they call it the green or the black or whatever. I don't know, finance terms, the upside, right? Making more than you spend so that we can start chipping away at debt and all that and just travel and like really pursue that dream. And so that's kind of where we're at. And we pretty much just, we've decided that Colorado is still an option. We don't know when. And we're going to be open to the idea as we travel. Left coast, we're going, right? So we'll be Ohio for a little while. Then we'll be in Colorado for Thanksgiving. We'll be Vegas, Sedona, and then San Diego for Christmas. And then we're going to start traveling north. So we really love the Northwest. So we'll explore Northern California, Oregon, Seattle, Vancouver, and just look at everything through the lens of, could we live here? Could this be roots? Right? So we're just kind of really keeping it open, right? And just kind of being smart and practical at the same time. So I'm running seminars at gyms along the way. I'm talking about either detailing in seminar form, speaking about my bare bones method, which is exactly what we're going to talk about keeping perspective in training and why you started and, playing to the day. Or I'll run clinics on kettlebell. And I do a lot of unique things with kettlebell. And I'm an advocate that you can be big and strong and train kettlebells. It's not just for these, fancy little things.
Yeah, as
Yeah,
I like to call everything, booty by Jane.
totally. Yeah. Or I do strongman.
Okay.
Or strongman clinics, right? I find a gym that's got some strongman stuff they're not using. And it's like, here's how to incorporate it into functional training, not necessarily promote like competitive strongman, because I've been there and that hurts, right? But promote like how do you get the tire and the sandbag and the farmer's carries and stones brought into a typical cross training CrossFit type facility. And
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I've been fascinated watching, talking to you a little bit here and there on Instagram, and then watching it kind of unfold, and now hearing the full story. I was like, how is he gonna do it? Like, what is the plan here?
Yeah.
Like, at first I was like, oh yeah, moving to Colorado, like start a gym. Like, yeah, that makes total sense to me, right? That's the comfort makes sense.
Super practical, yeah.
And then you look at, like, you're telling me a story. I'm like, what the fuck's going on over there? Like, how is he gonna do this? But I was checking out your website again last night, and your website's pretty sweet, by the way. But like, just the different levels of programming you offer, and it's funny. A couple weeks ago, a buddy of mine that owns a gym near Detroit, he's like, you want to come out? We're doing like a strongman like thing for their 1-year anniversary. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll come. I've wanted to learn how to like log press properly and do all this shit, right? I show up right at the start of, like, it's 11 o'clock. I walk in at 11 o'clock. And he's like, oh, you're competing. What? So we did like 3 events, and it was a small crowd, but like 3 events. It was like log press, it was the axle deadlift, and a keg carry. And all my life growing up, like, it's weird because in the last like 6 months, 8 months, whatever, I've realized how much fitness and training is a really excitement of my life. Like, I love helping people do it. And there's some confidence issues in there, which, like the podcast we run about mindset and then physical and emotional training, stuff like that. But I'm starting to realize that all my life, in the morning when I wake up before school, is like, oh, the strongman competition's on TV. Turn that on. Loved it. And so I did this event, and I walked away, and I'm like, dude, in 60 seconds, I can feel like I got a workout like I've never gotten before. And these guys are jacked, like some of the biggest, strongest dudes out there. And then on top of that, I see some of your training in the last couple of weeks you're posting, and I'm like, what the fuck is going, like, does he just make up these workouts when he walks into the gym on that day? Because this looks fun.
Yeah.
And like, that was one of my questions for you. And the funny part is, yesterday we had talked about this. I go into the gym. I've been battling a little bit of a back issue on and off for well over a year and a half. And yesterday it just came to a head, and I'm like, fuck this. And I'm like, this is like perfect timing that Ryan and I are going to sit down and talk. So I have a lot of questions about what he's doing, how he's doing it. And it just became kind of one of those things of, stop spending 2.5 hours in the gym unless you're going to be very specific and train for a competition of some sort. Yeah. You don't need, just go in and do whatever you feel like doing for that day. Sometimes the best plan is not having the plan. And I think I'm kind of at that point where it's like, you give yourself 60 to maybe 80 minutes a day, do whatever feels right that day. If you want to go heavy, go heavy. If you want to go light for reps, go light. Like, just play around in the gym and have fun with it rather than beating yourself up. And I think, like, that's super exciting. And watching your stuff actually is motivational to me, because I knew you were a big dude, but you posted something the other day, and I was like, whoa, I did not realize how big and strong you were. I think you were doing like a carry of some sort. I'm like, I didn't realize how tall you were. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's a monster.
You lose like 6 inches on Instagram. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it adds 10 pounds. But no, super fascinating there. And I'm sure we'll circle back to some of this stuff, but I want to dig into some of the meat here, and before we get off too much on too many rants. But I know for the audience, I've had a couple people request how to start a fitness journey. And to me, I've wanted to do this episode. I was planning on doing it. I think I told you I was going to do it on my own, and I want to bring you in. But life happens, and here we are. So I no better way, especially after looking at your website again. Just very basic stuff. Nothing has to be super. We were talking about this off recording when we weren't recording. Just how simple and basic everything can be, and how percentages are. I feel like probably need to be to the elites. And even saying that, the elites are people that are probably competing in some form pretty consistently. So for the audience, I think it'd be cool to kind of go over, where do you start your clients? What's your goal with a new client? Different population. I know we talked about teens, maybe an adult population. It's kind of all over the place, but where do you usually explain where we want to start with your athletes, your clients, whatever, whoever's coming in?
So it really depends on, so my goals for them are dependent on their vision for themselves, right? So I run everything from, I've been a strength coach for a class AA high school varsity football team. So I understand that their goals are a lot different than I have women in their 60s that come in and they're like, I just want to move and be a badass 6-year-old woman. You know what I mean? So like, I try to keep those things in perspective. And I think that reminding people of their goals later on down the road is a big part of it too. Because I think it's, before I really get into it, I think it's very easy for people to get caught up in, like we were saying earlier, that I don't like people being able to name what I do. So I think that people need to keep their own goals in mind. So for example, someone says, hey, I want to come in and just be the fittest 6-year-old woman I can and like live a long time and do cool things, right? But then she learns about CrossFit, and then CrossFit teaches her about Olympic lifting, and then all of a sudden she gets her head into this like pigeonholed idea, and all of a sudden she's training like Olympic lifting things with a class 2 times a week, and she's hurt, she doesn't enjoy it anymore, and she's saying things like, oh, I don't want to go today, but I really got to work on my split jerk. What the fuck for? You're 64 years old. You don't need to work on your split jerk, right? You just want to play with your grandkids. Right. So just keeping their perspective, you know what I mean? It's cool. If you love Olympic lifting, go do it. If you love split jerking, go do it. Right. But I think that perspective is huge for people. And I think that writing those things down for a new client on your journey is super important. Being 100% self-aware and not telling the coach what they want to hear. You know what I mean? So like
going to therapy and being like, how do you feel? Like, I feel all right. Like, no, this is your opportunity to be like, I feel like fucking shit.
Yeah. I'm training a high schooler that wants to he wants to go on a model. I think that's awesome. He wants to put on like lean muscle and lean out. And I told him the other day, I was like, because we're doing bodybuilding type movements aside from like getting a good foundation. And I was like, how's it feel? He's like, okay. I'm like, you tell me it feels okay, and I'm going to give you more weight and more reps. Like, well, be honest with me. You know what I mean? So yeah, don't tell the coach what they want to hear. Be 100% honest, because your opinion and your outcomes are what matters, not what the coach thinks of you.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of having the coach. Like, it's so hard to program for yourself, which is something I've struggled with, and might be the time right now for me to go into and just be like, play rather than program. Yeah. But it is so crazy that people do get that pigeonhole. I'm guilty of it too. Like yesterday was kind of me like hitting rock bottom of that pigeonhole. But now I woke up this morning, I'm like, maybe I should try it again. Maybe I should stick with it. And it's like, no, man, like you're not competing for anything. You can still get strong and do all these things, but you mentioned in there building a foundation. Yeah. There is no substitution for strength, and whatever strength is that's a sliding scale. It's a spectrum, but there is no substitute for building a base level of strength, right? In Power Athlete, we talk about that all the time, but there's not like, that's part of building capacity in my mind. Yeah, we need to build this engine that allows us to stay underneath the barbell or, do whatever our goal is. Yeah. But if you can't move properly and you're trying to do this, X value 10 times, but you haven't done X value 9 times, what are we doing? There's a whole purpose in laying the foundation, as you said. And I guess for I'll let you keep going on that. How do you build that with your clientele?
So I think that regardless of where they really want to go with their goals, I think it's super important that they we get their basic patterns down, right? Their body needs to be able to handle a certain amount of load. You can't overload anything until they have structural integrity at all. So kind of what I detail in my ebook there, the whole bare bones method idea is that I like to see people do a version of a squat, pick up something heavy, press something away from them, pull something towards them, whether it's their own body weight, and then the same thing vertically, right? Our seven basic movement patterns.
Right.
And then Where my methodology differs from power athlete is geared towards field sport athletes. Mine is geared towards general population. So you tell me that all you got is a sandbag, sweet, squat that, pick it up heavy, carry that around, right? Do push-ups over that, do rows with it. So you can accomplish all those basic patterns without being pigeonholed into like, it needs to be a barbell squat, it needs to be this. And then that kind of takes expectation away from, did I do more weight than the other day? You know what I mean? So
That's
for
cool.
people, I would say an actionable step for someone brand new in the gym, they're like, man, where do I start? I think first off, it depends on where you're going. Are you training in your garage? Are you training at a gym? Do you have a coach? Are you going to a big box gym? You know what I mean? I would say realize that you are building wealth for your body over the long term. No one would expect to put $1 in the bank every day and then be rich next week or next month, right? It's going to have to take a long, long time. And understanding that in the age of instant gratification is huge, right? I think so many people get discouraged and move away from things, or it doesn't work because they haven't given it time to work, and it's going to take so long. So I think I reiterate that to a lot of clients that are like, man, let's do a 4 week, let's do a 6 week. I'm like, listen, man, you're going to learn about yourself in the first 4 to 6 weeks, and you're going to develop some neuromuscular pathways and learn how to move your body, but you're not going to see huge results beyond you're going to lean out a little bit because you're moving more than you already were. And you're going to be stronger because you're going to learn how to use your body, right? That's all.
That's like being the the coach or a trainer that when you get someone newer and you're bench pressing, use this example, and they're coming back down and they're shaking. And most people are like, get the bar out of your hands. Yeah. Hell no. That's your body learning what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, it's trying
to figure out. Now we're going to be like, oh, nice and smooth. Everything's working here. I think it's allowing an athlete or your client, whatever, the verbiage you want to use there, allowing them to learn about themselves is part of building that foundation of the movement. But the patterning, the brain has to have a chance to figure it out. It happens fast. It never happens fast enough, specifically in today's world. But I love building wealth for your body. I love that line. It's awesome. It's also really funny to me that your story, who you are, like is presenting itself right now. You're talking about bare bones and where you start people. And you mentioned being a minimalist with your family. And so this whole picture is being painted right now. Like it is very, very apparent that you're living who you are.
Yeah. So 4 years ago, what is it? Yeah. So 4.5 years ago in the backyard at my wife's parents' house, we sat down with a big pot of coffee and a notebook. And I still have that piece of paper when I decided that I wanted to build a website and a training program and train people. And I had things like the meat-based athlete. And I had all these like tons of ideas out there and like the something underground and renegade things and just words, right? And then we honed it down. And I was like, well, I want strength in there. And I want people to know that it's just the basics, right? My whole idea from the beginning was to cut through the bullshit, because pick up any copy of Men's Health, Men's Fitness, and it's going to be Jay Cutler's arm routine or what The Rock did to get in shape. Right. And like, that's not for you. And everybody's reading that and they're like trying to follow these things. And there's just too much, right? We call it paralysis by analysis, right? You don't know which way to go, so you don't take any path. So my whole goal is like to cut through all that bullshit and say, listen, here's what's important. I've tried every single training program for a decade before I started coaching professionally. I was a strongman. I was a power lifter. I was a bodybuilder. I got all the things out of the magazines. And what I did was I dissected everything. I was like, what are the common themes here, right? You got to squat. You got to pick up something heavy and carry it. You probably got to push your limits a little bit, and you probably got to get your heart rate up. So bare bones strength, and then the bare bones method was just about trying to get people to understand that and teach them that. That's not to say that right out of the gate. So coming back full circle here to somebody starting a program, yes, those things are important, but yes, absorb as much as you can from a coach, from a reputable source. Even if you're going to like hire a coach for one personal training session a week and they give you a plan later on, right? Or check in with a coach via Skype or watch movement demos, right? Learn it the right way. So you and I have been doing this for a long time, so we can go play, right? We've learned words and we can create our own sentences.
Right.
We've learned how to bench. So today I posted, I know how to bench. I know how to do pull-ups on ropes, okay? I've transformed that into a rope, and I know how to heavy carry and pick up things. And I've taken those words and built a sentence, and that was my training program today.
Which, yeah, I saw that. I woke up this morning, I saw that, and I was like, wow, that actually looks like a ton of fun. I have to pick that up today as a bench day. No, that's awesome, dude. And I don't know. It's again, it's the simplicity of everything, and that's the beauty of it. Like everybody wants the fix now, or the fast fix. They don't want to put the time in. I'm guilty of this too. Like, I'll get on a barbell, but it's funny that you're saying with form sentences. Sometimes our language goes to shit. Like yesterday, I'm working with the owner of the gym. He's spotting me, and he's like, "I feel like you're a little wide." I was like, "Yeah, I felt something's up with my hip," and then all of a sudden my back goes, and I'm like, what is happening right now? So the sentences still have grammatical errors in them, and that's part of that play where you still have to learn, and that's why you are playing.
Yeah.
But it's after you kind of build that, why did I know that my stance is weird? And he called it out. I felt it. And then I looked at the video and I was like, I'm not even squatting in depth anymore. This feels so crappy today. And it's like, okay, now it's time to revisit the fundamentals again because you're missing it. Like you've lost touch with how to create that sentence. And it's still there. It's just you got to kind of go clean it up, spell check it essentially. I love the way you phrase that too. It's so true, but you have to take the time to learn it. I've a couple times, I've always been injured in hockey. I didn't really start understanding training until probably 2010. I'd been training for a couple of years before that as an athlete, but I was bodybuilding essentially to be a college hockey player. Like, I know now, and I'm like, what was that? No wonder you're injured. But now you still have the residual effects of that. It doesn't go away. And at some point, the injuries kind of press pause on you and say, if you want to continue on, this is going to be miserable, or you can be miserable going backwards and enjoy the process back up. Because when you do that, everything's going to settle back down and you will have a better understanding of self, a better understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, your why. But you'll just feel fucking better. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, I want to train as an athlete because I play beer league once a week, but it's time to kind of be like, hey, you're 29 years old, you're gonna be coming up on 30. Yep. It doesn't fix itself the same way it used to, and it's just so important to take that in, and it's ego. It's an ego thing right there, where it's okay. What do you have time for today? Is something that I really missed the spot on. You're not going to build, Rome wasn't built in a day. That cliche is so true though. It's okay. You can squat a little bit here and a little bit there. And over time, you're just accumulating these steps in the process to being whatever you want it to be. So that's really fascinating. I love that you pointed out the where you're going to be training. So many people are really intimidated by going into a Globo gym or a CrossFit box, whatever it might be. And rightfully so. Some of these places I'm intimidated sometimes when I go and I'm like, this is not inviting. Like I like to think that I know what I'm doing for the most part. Not to be heard as I don't have anything to learn. But I feel like I should be able to walk into a gym and be like, oh, yeah, I understand my body enough to be taught and learn and do whatever. But there are plenty of gyms that I've gone into where I'm like, what? You guys are so unwelcoming here. And maybe I look like I've worked out, but you don't know if I move well. You don't know if I'm just like help. So that's really crucial. What do you usually prescribe as far as, do you prescribe a certain amount of times per week, amount of time that you're working out, or is it just kind of, do you go off feel?
So there's a lot of factors I think that will play into that on the person. Obviously, biological age is a big factor. The younger the athlete, so I train a lot of 13 to 17-year-olds, and they have the capability to recover really well, but I still usually give them 3 days a week because of everything they're doing on the back end. And then you get that middle ground of like your 20 to 24 that might have been an athlete before, they can handle 4 to 5 days a week. And then you get your older population that just takes longer to recover, probably from like, I'm feeling it, I'm 32, and I know it takes me another extra day or two to recover from a lot of things. Biological age is a big factor, but then you've got training age. How long have you been training in the gym? Have you been doing P90X in your living room for the last 2 years before you came to me? You've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, try that word again. And then you come to me and you're like, hey, I just want to get really strong. Now your body knows what it feels like to train, all right? Or you coming straight off the couch to 5K, right? And then you want to come in and lift a bit. I don't want to make you so sore that you can't walk up a flight of stairs tomorrow, because then your training's not serving your life at all. Totally. So I would say frequency depends on listening to your body. And if you find a coach that is willing to kick your ass day one, they're not a good coach, right? Minimal effective dose. What's the least amount of work I can give you that will see results so you can positively impact your life?
Yeah, stimulate to grow. That's any new client that comes in, I always tell them the first couple of weeks are gonna be nice and slow. There's too much to teach, specifically if you have no background. And I'd argue that the people that come in trained probably takes a little bit longer because we got to break a habit. But just teaching how to move and understanding why we're moving a particular way, and then allowing your body to catch up to that. I have a client right now that she used to be an athlete and life happens, and just watching her move now, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but comparatively speaking, from day one to whatever day it is now, light years. I mean, we're talking about being able to lunge 55 feet without tipping over, versus the first day it was like it's going to take us 60 minutes to lunge this amount of distance. And those are the things that I try to get people to pay attention. Like, in short of you telling me that you want to be a power lifter or whatever it is, all we need to do is stimulate a little bit more each time, and then we're good to go. And I need to take that advice for myself. But to me, like, it's the same concept when I was coaching 10-year-old hockey players, really good young hockey players. Parents are fully invested financially and time-wise. But they'd always be like, they're like, well, how can I get my kid bigger, stronger, faster? And I'm like, they're 10. So first of all, their balls have not dropped yet. That's number one, and I can't help with that. Number two, just let them go out and play. They're on their phone all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Tell them to go outside on a Saturday and don't come back in until it's 9:00 at night.
Oh, man.
Just stop. Like, go let them play, be kids. Go fall down. Go do the shit. And like this is gonna be like one of the most old sounding things I'll ever say, but it's not the way it was when we grew up. I remember, like, I would wake up at 6:00 in the morning on a Saturday to play video games, and it was like, can 8:00 get here? Because I want to go play street hockey and all this crap. And I'm not the biggest, strongest. I was never the skinniest, ripped kid. Actually, I was always the fat kid. But I always just wanted to play. And I don't understand. Like, it didn't matter what it was. Like, people like pickle, hockey, football. Yeah, let's do it. And they don't do that anymore. So to me, like, the minimum effective dose, as you said, with the coach is up to, that's between you and the coach. But the minimal effective dose that you can do, just go move. I don't care if it's a 10-minute walk, a half-hour walk. Just move every single day in some capacity. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator at work, and that's your movement for the day. Awesome. That is more than you probably did in the last week.
Yeah.
And to me, like, when I think about minimal, you can come into me for 3 times a week, and we can work on things. But that time should be the time to learn and to make sure that you're doing things properly. So that way, when you remove yourself from the 4 walls and enter your own 4 walls, are you capable? Do you feel confident? Are you excited to move? All these things. And I think that's missed quite a bit. That comes back down to that percentage. People are like, well, I got to be at 80%. You're like, this is so stupid right now. Yeah. Or, we had a guy who's at our gym that he's probably lost over 130 pounds. And at one point he sat down and talked to me. He's like, I feel like I'm stalled. I'm like, how many days a week are you working out? It's like 6. And I'm like, what's your sleep and food like? He goes, well, sleep, usually 4 to 5 hours a night. I was like, stop. I already have the answer for you. We don't have to go any further. Yeah. Start sleeping more, work out less. And he came back in like 2 weeks later. He's like, I feel so much better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is not truly rocket science. It can become that, but most people don't need it. That's always fascinating to me. So I appreciate your simplicity in using the terms minimal effective dose. I think is kind of the hot button right there. It's so accurate that it hurts, because people don't want to wait and be patient. They don't want to say like, well, this is going to take a long time. Mm-hmm. But along that long time, you're going to learn a ton of stuff, and your body's going to feel better. And fitness, without a doubt, in every aspect, is trial and error.
Yeah.
Like someone that says like, well, I've got the best thing for you. Like, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, like, yeah, you have your basics that need to be mastered, but outside of saying like, oh, this is the best diet, this is that. What do you enjoy? What's easiest for you, or what brings out the most excitement in you? Let's follow that path rather than, putting square peg round hole.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to hear sometimes. And like, I don't know, man, sometimes it's really hard to deal with. So I'm really like envious of what you're about to do, where you have your whole training system. You're about to take off in the RV, and but who you are is presented in your training. I've watched it. That's kind of, I have that written down here. What's your training like? I know we've talked about it a little bit, but when you come in, obviously we're talking about, a newer athlete coming in, and yeah, we need to teach a basic. But once we kind of get the training wheels off, if they keep working with you, that's one thing. But if they don't, and you're starting to get more into a trained thought process, or with someone that's a little bit more trained, understands their body, what do you like to do? How do you ramp them up? How do you train yourself? I know that you said you kind of, at least that was my understanding, you kind of go into the gym, you're like, what do I feel like doing today?
Yeah.
Do you put it together? Like, what do I feel like doing today with this amount of equipment for 6 weeks? Or how's that work for you? How's that work for your clients?
So kind of on the topic of like my clients, and if I get somebody in, when I started my business, it was for high schoolers. When I was going to college, I saw some heinous versions of lifts happening in the football room at college level. So it's like, somebody's got to teach these kids from a high school level. So when I started that program, it was for high schoolers, and I wanted to teach them the correct way to lift, foundation, so that way they can move on. And strength coaching college can say, here's a program, and they know what to do, right? But with that, what comes with the territory and things that I never expected to learn was the idea that knowing that I wasn't getting a client for life because they're in high school. So I knew when that person came in, I was going to have them for a season or a year, or like until baseball started or until they went to college. So I got into this mindset of, I want to train people, I want to teach people and send them on their way. I want to like give them the methods and the tools and send them out. So I don't want clients for life. With my training programs, 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks, I want to teach people principles, right? And so that way they can take those principles, like we were talking about words and form their own sentences, teach them principles so they can apply it to their own life. Because nobody wants to, I don't want you to, well, sure, if you want to pay me for life every single week to train you, awesome, more power to you, I'll take your money. No, but like, you don't want to pay somebody forever for something, right? You want to learn how to do it. You want to be taught how to fish. You want to be able to go out there and do that. Yeah. And I think I'm trying to streamline the process of what it took me 5, 6 years to learn before I ever started coaching, because I experimented all over the place and learned these things, and now I can go off on my own. So I want to teach people that. And then what I want them to be able to do, and this is how I structure my training, is I come into the gym and I'm like, all right, it's Monday. I know that I want to do some lower body today, or I want to do some upper body, and I go based off feel. And so on a micro, we'll start there. On the daily, on the micro, it's today I know I want to squat. Perfect. How's my wrist feeling? How's my elbows feeling? Am I going front? Am I going back? Cool. I decided to go back. How are my knees feeling? Do I have to go box squat today because I don't want to hit super, super low depth? Awesome. And then I decided rep scheme. Am I feeling like going super heavy? Am I jacked up? Or I'm like, man, let's just get some volume in. And then I pick other movements, right? So I always superset everything, because I have, and it's funny, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, once you get into the fitness industry, because you love being in the gym, you don't train as often, right? You don't have as much time anymore. Yeah. And if you are the coach that trains all day long, your business is probably failing. That's all. So,
and you find yourself wasting a lot of time, so you're just exhausted.
Totally. Yeah. So I'll come in and I'll be like, listen, I got like 45 minutes to an hour. How can I pack the most work in possible? So I'm going to come back to this because I want to say about that. People are, and I know people out there that have trained are going to be like, well, if you're not taking rest and you're not allowing your central nervous system to repair, how are you going to hit these percentages, max lifts? I don't give a shit, right? I've deadlifted over 600 pounds in my life. I don't care if I ever get back there. But for me, consistently hitting over 500 any day of the week is great. So I will get stronger from what I'm doing, but I'm not focused on that. But my strength then will go towards life versus pigeonholing myself towards like that 1 rep max. So that's how I combat when people are like, well, you're not going to hit like a true max. I'm like, I don't care about a true max. I just want to get stronger overall. So I superset things. So I'm like, I'm going to squat. Let's say I decided that I'll feel good when I warm up. So my squats are going to go a couple sets of 10, some 8s, some 5s, and then with a couple heavy triples. In between every round, maybe I'm doing giant sets of band pull aparts, working the upper back.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'm doing a prowler push or something because I want to keep my heart rate up. And then when I'm done with that big movement of the day, I always pick a secondary movement. So I'm like, sweet, I did lower, I want to do upper. I'm going to strict press or I'm going to bench. So I decided to bench. I'm going close grip today because I just feel like that. And then, so I'm pushing, so I better pull, maybe throw some bent rows in between. And then I superset those for about 4 sets. And then I'm like, do I want to go do conditioning today? So let's talk about the macro. During the course of that week, some days are conditioning, some days are lifting. And if I'm going to lift more, I'm like, all right, I did big movements, smaller movements, let's go smaller. I'll do a couple rounds of like flies, maybe some curls, and then I'll like carry a heavy sandbag out and back. If I'm going conditioning, maybe I keep that sandbag, but I'm also tossing it over the shoulder. I'm hitting some box jumps and some sprints, things like that. Sure. Yeah. So I'm pretty much just taking all the basic things and deciding what are my main movements, piecing some accessories that don't take away from it, do an accessory movement like a push-pull type thing, and then I move on to conditioning or bodybuilding. And it's usually if I hammer down and I'm going, and any rest I take is spent setting up the next piece of equipment, right? I'm not chatting to people. I'm not texting this and that. And I can get it done in 45 minutes. That's awesome. That's like 5 rounds of 3 pieces, 4 rounds of 2 more pieces, and then a conditioning piece.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's efficient use of time right there. No doubt.
I feel like that's all it needs to be. And I'm usually sweating through a shirt by the time I'm done, and it serves my.
And there's definitely, I don't know. I think it was maybe last week. Excuse me. You were squatting, and I think you had 375, and you stood it up, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't, you never post a video of like, well, here's my 1 rep max, or here I'm going for 5, like nothing like that. It's just like, yeah, I just decided to sit down with 375 or something. And I was like, there was some speed behind that thing. Like, holy crap. So there is something to it. Like, obviously you've obviously built a motor before. So let's not get that wrong. That not like you woke up and were like, yeah, this sounds fun. But you're able to maintain it.
Like lifetime things, what I've done in the past. So this is, so like you said, I went 375 for a double the other day. My whole thing is, what can I do raw strength? I've been hashtagging raw strength because no more do I have lifters and wraps and sleeves and belts. That was in chucks and that's it. 375 for a double, and it felt pretty good. I know that lifetime, I think my lifetime squat was like 475, but that was like all geared up and peaked out and ready for it. But like, if I can come in on a random day and be like, I'm feeling good because the tunes are pumping, and go 375 with nothing for a double, great. That serves my life. But like you said, there had to have been a foundation there. So I had high 4s squat, 6+ deadlift, bench I won't admit because it was only low 3s, but things like that. Yeah. I built that foundation, and now I decided that if I can operate within 90% of that any day of the week, then that's strength for every day. That makes me capable. I'm not peaked. I'm not sore. I'm just capable. Yeah.
Do you hold in the back of your head like a ratio of push to pull or conditioning? Are you truly off of feel the entire time, or do you kind of have that like, okay, I pushed once, I want to pull twice type thing? Or is that something like where you're like, I just feel like I'm rounding forward, I need to pull a little bit more, whatever it is? How much of it is truly off feel on the big scale, or is it just like every day I go in and I'm like, here we go?
So that's kind of like if somebody says to you they're driving based off feel, right? And you take a 17-year-old, they can't drive based off feel. Or you take somebody that's driven for 20 years, and all of a sudden you might lose track of where you've been for the last 10 minutes, but you hit every directional, you turned every way, and you wipers were on, and you were looking both directions because they're automatic. Sure. Right? Our athlete describes it as unconscious competence. Right. So that applies not only to movement patterns, but it also applies to knowing your body. Unconscious competence in knowing that, so like that sample day that I just described to you, the reason I would probably unknowingly just go to pull aparts is because when I'm squatting, I'm feeling like this, so I want to pull myself back. Right. And the reason I'm doing some prowler in between is because I don't want to feel here. So maybe I'm doing some bear crawls instead. I just want to keep nimble, right? Be able to continue to move and keep my mobility up. I push pull. I generally, like you said, I pull more than I push, but usually in rep format. So I might press in sets of 3, 5, or 8, and I might pull in sets of 8, 12, or 15.
Gotcha.
Things like that.
Cool.
Yeah, That way I'm kind of doubling that pull, like you said. Trying
That's
to
awesome.
keep an eye to the posterior chain, trying to make sure that like my goal muscles are hitting more than my show muscles, things
Right,
like
right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah, take care of themselves, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. I really appreciate it because now I'm probably going to implement that in my own own training here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I know you talked about being strongman. Did you compete in strongman?
I did. Amateur. Yeah.
Amateur. Damn, that's awesome. I love that sport. I don't, for whatever reason, I'm really hesitant to get involved in it, but I love that sport. It's that to me is such a different type of athleticism. Those guys can giddy up. Like you're looking at the elite guys up there, but they start moving some of those weights, and you're like, uh, how the hell's that happening? But that's super interesting.
I got a
Do you
client
have
now.
like what's that?
I'm going to give a client a little shout out here. I got a guy that I've been working with. I've known him for years and years. He was typically a power lifter, bodybuilder, and he got into strongman when we hosted something called Utica's Strongest Athlete. So he kind of got a taste for it. It was an outdoor strongman event and an unsanctioned one. And then, so he got a taste for it and he wanted to get into strongman. He came to me about 10 weeks before a competition that was at the end of September. And he was like, dude, I want to compete and I want to win. I was like, awesome, let's do it. Cause I knew this kid was strong anyway. He's a 198 and he was coming to me with like a 400 plus pound front squat and like all this crazy. Yeah. So we got him athletic, this kid. So this is cool because now I can live vicariously through him. And we brought him up to it was a sanctioned strongman event. And the way strongman works is if you place top 3 in your weight, you get an invite to nationals the next year.
Okay.
And then when you go to nationals, obviously the tops go to like the Arnold.
Sure.
Yeah. So he, as a 198, he comes in and realizes that the 198 class competition day was small, and he got lumped in with the 220s, and he still placed third. You know, awesome.
Dang,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
He's a worker. He works so hard. He had like almost a 300-pound log bench press he did for a single, and like incredible.
Cool,
yeah.
dude. The log is such a different monster. I love using the log now. I just started putting it in the training recently, but that's impressive right there. That's I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. I think you just podcasted with him a couple weeks ago.
Joey Zatmary?
Yeah, Joey. That's right. Yeah.
Dude.
We were just talking about Zach Evanesh. That's why Zach came up. Joey is a friggin' monster.
Yeah.
That guy, I don't know where he gets the engine from, but then he puts the strength on top of that engine. You're like, holy crap.
So he's an interesting character too. He's super cool. He podcasted with me, and I did a little bit of like business mentoring with him. He's been helping me out with some stuff because he's grown. Like his YouTube is huge.
Yeah.
He just went to Worlds actually. He competed on Team USA, I think, in the like Ukraine for strongman. But he posted some like throwback stuff. So he talked about like having a foundation before. I think he had like, I saw him do like a 405 power clean or something. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So here's my daughter.
Hey there. How are you?
Please say hi.
Hi.
What's your name?
He wants to know your name.
My name's Hattie.
Your name's
What's
Hadley.
Hadley. Nice to meet you. I'm Brian.
So
I got my daddy.
you got your daddy. Daddy's gonna wrap up in here, okay? You're gonna hang out with mine for a couple minutes, okay?
I got my daddy. Mom, let's go.
Go quick, and I'll be right out, okay?
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that brings me to another interesting point that, like I said earlier, once you I got a family, you got a business, all that stuff. So the reason I'm looking at, nobody pays me to work out, but like that's super important to me. My family's super important, and my business is super important. So I need to keep perspective. And I think that's another lesson that a lot of people could take away is that perspective. Make a list of priorities. For me, it's wife and daughter, business, my own health, right? That's all. So while it's important and it needs to happen, it can't take away. I can't be spending 3 hours in the gym because my relationship with my wife is going to suffer. My daughter's not going to see me. And then my business is going to start to suffer. Yeah. So it has to be them first, then my business, and then my health and my training. So if I'm in a time crunch and I got half an hour, I'm outside. You're going to see a lot of this once we like start traveling through the road. I'm going to have a kettlebell. There's going to be days that I'm like, I'm doing 100 swings today and 100 push-ups, and that's it.
All right.
But If you zoom out, right, you can't see that one different brick in the wall of what are they, like the Great Wall of China. You zoom out, you just see the wall, right? So the important thing is to keep adding bricks. You know what I mean? They might not all be the same, but eventually you're going to build that up.
I love that perspective. Well, I'll start wrapping it up here. The one last thing, there'll be a couple last questions here, summary of it, but I did want to touch on mindset.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, when you get someone new coming into the gym or somebody that's been somewhere and taking some time off and trying to get back at it, what do you preach as far as, you just kind of talk about perspective, mindset, where's it at? What is your mindset like going into the gym as far as, you know, I don't want to be here? How do you talk yourself into appreciating or being grateful for that opportunity, whatever it might be?
So I take the accountability off of myself a little bit, or I become accountable not only to myself, but to something else. So say I get a day where I'm in the gym and I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, am I really going to squat today? If I hit these 5 squats and these 8 presses, is that going to make me a better human? But then I take a step back from the what happens physically, and I start to look at what's happening mentally, and as far as me committing to something and doing it and what I get out of that instead. So training in a lot of ways is a catalyst to me making myself appreciate being accountable to something I've committed to, and also seeing it through. And it's really difficult when you do your own programming because it's so easy to change in the middle.
Right.
But man, I wrote it on the board. I'm going to do it today. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to do it. It's going to make me stronger in my mental resolve. It's going to make me a better person. And I start to think about, like, what kind of example am I setting for her when, if she were to come to the gym with me and be like, Dad, you said you're going to do 5, you did 3. And be like, I didn't want to. And later someday she's going to be like, I didn't want to. Or she sees me like, dude, Dad puts his head down and he gets his shit done. I'm going to do that too. And those are the lessons I learned. Kids learn by doing, not by telling. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that, man. Cool. Then a little bit, I got maybe like 2 more questions here for you. I want you maybe like a 60-second blurb of what people just starting their journey off, no matter their age, whatever, no matter their current or past abilities, you are a blank slate today. What do you need? What do you think is the essentials for them in training and nutrition? And you don't have to be 60 seconds. You can take however long you want, but.
All right. Well, you better give me a time constraint because I'll need it. So the essentials are to not overthink it, right? Not overthink it, and don't be an asshole, right? So you're going to have times where you're going to see a buddy you haven't seen for 10 years and they want to grab a beer. You're going to go to a kid's birthday party, like the 2-year-old party today. You're going to want to have a slice of cake, right? I'm going to beat a dead horse by saying moderation, but it's moderation, right? It's perspective and moderation. So why did you start? Keep in mind that you need to live your life because no one pays you to be fit and strong, right? You're paying yourself to do that. And I think as far as nutrition goes, I think that you had said something earlier about like keto,
the extreme side of things.
Yeah. So don't get caught up in the extreme side of things if you're brand new, right? If you're brand new, you need to look at, what did my grandma's grandma eat and will she recognize as food? And it's probably going to be meat, veggie, and like potatoes, rice, right? In that order, some fruit, things like that, with a little bit of wiggle room to throw in like ice cream here and there. You know what I mean? So keep in perspective about it. If you are brand new and you got a long way to go, it's probably going to need to be a little bit more strict. That's all. The other thing, and you touched on this earlier, as far as the training side, is it doesn't happen in a vacuum and it doesn't happen within the gym. Like you said, the gym is a learning experience. So you need to learn those things and then practice them. If you want to pay a coach top dollar to come in and watch you practice, by all means, go ahead. But that's your money and that's your dollar. What you should be paying that coach to do is to learn and assess and correct so you can go home and practice, right? So I give homework all the time. I see my kids 3 days a week and I tell them, you better be doing planks, push-ups, sit-ups, and then having fun. So by that, I mean, accumulate 50 push-ups throughout the course of the day. If you can't do 50 push-ups throughout the course of the day, then like you got too many excuses. You know what I mean? And by that, I mean, like a lot of the kids are like hands on a bench, hands on a chair, elevated hands doing them too. And that's okay because it'll get there, right?
Yeah, so progressing.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, and your entire day has to be revolving around what kind of person do you want to be when you hit those goals? What would that person do? That person would not go get pizza for lunch. That person would eat breakfast. They'd get up a little earlier and do those things. So take those actions that that person that you want to be would do, and then it will all fall into place eventually.
I love it. Love it, dude. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
All right. Well, cool. Before I ask you this final question,
Yep.
where can people find you? What are you about? Wherever people can find you and talk to you, whatever it is.
All right. So I'm trying to be everywhere. So I don't own Facebook, I don't own Instagram, and I don't own YouTube. I create content for those places, but there could be a law tomorrow that they could dissipate. So I have a website that I do own, and it's barebonesstrength.com. And you can get to all those things from that website. Awesome. That website is geared towards being a hub to occasionally I come out with shirts. I have coffee for sale. Looks like this. It's a custom blend by a local roastery. Bare Bones coffee. It's extra caffeinated dark roast. You can buy that there. I ship. I have pre-made programs. So I have 3 levels of programming. I have free programming. There's a tab called daily programming. It's 3 day a week, and it's super basic because I could not in good conscience sell something that I know people could get anywhere on the internet. By that, I mean, you can find free programming anywhere on the internet. That being said, I believe that my programming is superior, but I didn't want somebody to be discouraged by the $10 price tag and go find, Joe Schmo's Instagram page of daily WODs. I wanted them to have mine. So I'm giving that to them for free. Awesome. 3 days a week programming under daily training. Beyond that, I sell 4-week programs that are designed to have a start and an end and complete with warm-ups. They come in PDF or workbook format where you can actually write in old school, ship those out. Beyond that, I do custom programs. Somebody says, hey, I am a combat athlete, or I'm a tactical athlete, or I'm an 84-year-old dude and my needs are different. Can you write me a custom programming? I hop on a call like this. We chat for an hour. I take 2 or 3 days to write it up and I give it to them, and that's theirs. Or I do remote coaching, and that's the top level. And that's a 3-month commitment. That's come on in. Let's check in every week for an hour. I'm going to assess and give you your next week based on what you've done. We're going to talk nutrition. I'm going to be invested in you getting the top results. And if I got extra swag, I might send it to you, things like that. Like, you're my dude for 3 months. We're just in it. And I only take on a very, very small handful at a time so that I can be invested.
That's so cool.
That's what I do. Yep. Instagram at barebonesstrength. On Facebook, I have a private group. It's just called Bare Bones Strength. It's free to join, but you have to request to join. And I did that because I wanted a barrier to entry. That whole group is designed around creating a community of people that understand this type of training. And I'll make sure I add you on there too, so you can get in there. Just like posting your training, what you did, questions, some cool things you've done. I'll throw on like toughness challenges for people that want to do it, just for the fun of it. And that's Facebook group, Bare Bones Strength. You could find that on my webpage too. YouTube, I just started. By that, I mean, I probably have less than 100 videos, but I'm getting better at it. I'm learning. And
editing part's so difficult.
I know. I'm getting there though. So I keep pumping those out. Please check those out if you're on YouTube. I have my own podcast, which I'll probably take this episode and put on and send people your way. Awesome. And that's called Bare Bones Radio. I rant a lot on there. So I'll do like 5-10 minute rants. As you can tell, I enjoy talking.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I could do this all day.
So, yeah, those are all the places.
Awesome. That's Bare Bones, BEAR, Bones Strength, right? There it is. Pull the shirt off. Awesome.
Yep.
Ryan, this has been so cool. I got one final question. Hopefully it's the message you want to send. How do you want the impact? How do you want to impact the world so that people or yourself can say that you've had a life well done?
I want people to be inspired by me to not only be the most capable and strongest version of themselves, but to enjoy it the most and have the most fit life. And by that, I mean, if you look to nature, the fittest animals, right? Survival of the fittest means the one that is adaptable and can live the longest and do it the longest. So to me, being fit is, are you set up for the long term? And are you doing things that are going to serve your life for the long term? Right? Smile.
Oh man, I'm getting a call now. Look at that. Sorry.
That's all right. It's all right. Little marimba solo and the yeah. Yep. So I think a life well done is your gym serves your life, and you are sweaty, smiling, and safe.
I love it, man. Well,
Totally.
thank you so much for joining me. This has been so awesome. Good luck to you and your family and your journey.
Thanks, brother.
I hope that we are able to do this again, hopefully from a different location,
Yeah,
maybe for both,
totally.
but definitely for
We
you.
set it up. We can like in person. We're both in Colorado or something.
Heck yeah. I'm going to enjoy following your journey. Safe travels. Good luck with everything, but I'm sure we'll keep in touch here.
Totally. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon, Ryan.
All right, brother.
Later.